If you're looking for a great free SEO tool and you don't want to go with something like Yoast because you want some more advanced features, maybe you need to take a look at Rank Math. In this video, I'm just going to go over how you install it, how you can test to see any implications of using it, and just taking a brief overview of just some of the key things that are included in this plugin. So if you're interested in finding out, join me and we'll go through all of that right now. So when you want to use Rank Math, one of the things you have to do is sign up for an account. It's completely free, same as the plugin is, but you have to sign up. Now I've already done that because I've been using Rank Math on different sites for a little while. So we're going to take a look at assuming that you've already done this side of things. So the first thing we want to do before I even install the plugin is I want to just quickly run a speed test on the site, because one of the areas that Rank Math is sort of like touting is the fact that it's code optimized for speed. So we're going to take a benchmark of the site. It's a very basic site, has next to nothing on it, but it'll take a benchmark of it without the plugin installed. We'll install the plugin and then we'll run a benchmark on it a second time just to see what impact it has just by installing the plugin. So we jump over to GT Metrics. We're going to analyze the site. I've set this up now. I'm logged in. It's the closest server to me based in London and so on. So I'm going to hit the analyze on there. We're going to let that run through, take a look at the results. Then we'll install the plugin and see what impact that may have on the site speed. So the results are in, and this is not optimized. Like you say, you can see if you look at the thumbnail of the site, it is literally just some text and so on. But you can see we've got a decent page score of 98 and 90 with no optimization. Let's go into the plugin section. Let's search for Rank Math and let's just install that. And once you've installed it, we'll just run a second test just to see what difference this makes on the site speed, load time, the number of sort of requests that are being made, all those kinds of things. Let's activate it. We'll run through the wizard quickly and then we'll jump back over and we'll do a comparison. So let's just go through this wizard very quickly. First thing you want to do is you need to set up that free Rank Math account if you don't already have one set up. I'm going to say I've activated it. I've got everything done. You can see we can choose whether we want to allow them to gather information from our usage. We'll just say activate Rank Math. We're going to say, are you happy to activate this site? We're going to say yes, that's perfectly fine. Then we'll jump over into the wizard. So we've got 5 different steps for this wizard, a lot of which, if you're not sure what you're doing on there, you can basically just accept the defaults, because if you want to make changes later on down the line, all the options you set up during this wizard are all editable. And you can even rerun the wizard if you want to. So first of all, it says my website is compatible to run Rank Math. So that's good. We'll hit Start Wizard. We're going to come in now and we can set up some really basic information for our site. So the WordPress site is, we're going to leave it as a personal blog. That's perfectly fine. But obviously set this up to be exactly what your website's for. That's going to give you the best chances of getting good SEO, good optimization and things along those lines. So we'll leave that as a personal blog. We can upload a logo for Google and the default social share images. So I recommend uploading those, taking a look at the recommended sizes and so on. So we'll go to the next stage, which is save and continue. Then we've got the Search Console. So if you want to make sure that you can link this through to your Google Search Console account, you can do that. You just simply need to get the code for that. There's information on how to get it. You can authorize it. This will then link the two together, and anytime there's a problem or anything like that, all of your Search Console data will be available and it'll be linked through to your Rank Math account. So I would recommend you do that. If you don't have a Google Search Console account set up, just go and set one up. Like I say, it is completely free. Once you've done that, you can simply choose the profile that you want to use. So if you have multiple websites and you have a different profile for each one, then you can choose which is the right one for you. We'll save and continue on this though, and we're going to go over to our sitemaps. You can see, do we want to enable sitemaps? Now, it's a good idea to enable your sitemap because this is literally a great way for the spiders to be able to find all the relevant pages you want on your site. So I would always recommend making sure sitemaps is on if you've got a site that you want people to find and be able to find the pages and the content inside there. Do you want to include your images? It's entirely up to you if you want to use those. They will be then listed in the Google Images and you can search against those and so on. We've then got the public post types. Now currently this is a clean installed copy of WordPress. So you can see posts and pages are the only options we currently have inside there. We can and we will take a look a little later at adding in advanced custom fields and we'll see how this works with it. Then you've got public taxonomies, and taxonomies, if you don't know, are just ways of grouping your content together. Currently, it's set up to use categories, and again, if you're using ACF, then you can create custom taxonomies, and then you'd have those listed here as well, and you can choose whether you want to include them or exclude them. Entirely up to you. We'll save and continue to go to the next stage. Then we've got our SEO tweaks. If you're not sure what any of these do, you've got some information underneath that'll tell you a little bit of a brief overview. If you're not sure, leave it set to what it is as default. Unless you've got another reason to change it or you don't know what you're doing, the default should work perfectly fine. So take your time, have a little look through if these are new to you, see what you think is relevant. And again, if you find that you don't need to make changes at this point, you do later on down the line, you can easily come into the settings and change these back, change them to whatever options you have available. We'll leave these set as they are, and then we'll just simply come down and say save and continue, and we'll go to the final step, which just tells us it's ready. Now we can go over to the advanced options if we want to. We can proceed to the help page if you want to find out more. We can use any of the links on this site, or we can just simply return to our dashboard. We're going to choose return to the dashboard. So now we've got the plugin installed. We're going to jump back over to GTmetrix, run a completely fresh scan on this, and compare the two side by side to see what the differences are between them. I'm back over in GTmetrix and we're ready to run that fresh scan. So let's just analyze this again, let it run through, and then we can do the comparison with the before and after, before we put rank math in and after we've installed it. Now the reason I like to do this is because it gives me a good benchmark to see how much impact this is going to take on a very simple site, knowing that moving forward as my site gets more complex, we may see differences inside there. So we're getting the same page speed score, 98 and 90. Our fully load time is 1.2 seconds, which, because there's no optimization associated with this, and also there's various other factors, the time of day, the location, distance from the server, there's 1,000,001 different things that will influence this fully loaded time. So take that with a slight pinch of salt, because each time you run this, you may see a variation. What we're interested in though right now is the total page size and the requests. So 571 kilobytes and 43 requests. If we jump back over to our initial run before we installed it, you can see we've got 1 kilobyte difference and no request differences. And as you can see, there's the difference. You can see it's slightly slower to start off with. So this is just one of those discrepancy kinds of things. We could, if we wanted to, have a little look through then the waterfall and see any kind of changes. But what you can see is it's had minimal sort of impact upon anything to do with the site. Page size has gone up a tiny infinitesimal amount. So that's great to see. So first impressions, if you're using rank math, it should be a great starting point and not going to have much of an impact upon your site once you've installed that plugin. So first of all, I want to say that I'm no SEO expert, not by any stretch of the imagination. I just want to show you what options are available inside rank math and why it may be something you want to consider. If you're looking for SEO tutorials, there are 1,000,001 up on Facebook, YouTube, all those kinds of things. So take a look on there and see what works for you. Like I say, this is more of a top-down technical point of view. Okay, so with rank math installed, the first thing we see is the dashboard. If we look on the left-hand side, we've got a new section for rank math and all the different options are all set up inside there. We've also got different options we can enable or disable from the modules section of the dashboard. So let's take a quick look at that first of all and see what we have that's available to us. So we can do 404 monitoring. We can link this through to ACF. If we're using AMP, so we can make sure our site looks good on mobile devices, you can enable that. If you're using the forum software, BBPress or BuddyPress, you have ability to link through in there. Link counters, there's a ton of things inside you. And I think this is where rank math is really making a name for itself, especially when you compare it to something like Yoast SEO, which incidentally, I'm not the biggest fan of. You have to pay for a lot of these different things. Now, this is something that's definitely helping rank math set itself apart from a lot of those competitors out there that have pro versions. So if you were a user of advanced custom fields and you want to make sure that you've got integration between your SEO options and ACF, you can simply enable that, which obviously we don't have ACF installed just yet. We'll take a look at that a little later. 404 monitor is very useful. Now, what I would suggest is if you are using a sort of security plugin, something like iTheme Security, that also has 404 monitoring in there. So pick one over the other, whichever one you would prefer, because the last thing you want is to end up with double messages whenever you get a 404 message, because it could just become an absolute pain. So Pick one, stick with one. We have the option inside here. So let's just enable that to see what kind of options we have. If we enable that, you see now down the left-hand side, it opens up and gives us the extra option for the 404 monitor. So what these basically are doing is, these are different modules or options you can enable or disable, and then depending upon if they're enabled, you'll see them and all the settings that are associated with them on the left-hand side. So let's just jump into that 404 monitor and take a little look what options are in there. So you can see currently there are no 404 pages found on this site, which is not surprising. There's about 2 pages on here. But if you had a big site, you obviously want to make sure that you monitor that, because the last thing you want to do is end up with 404s on your website that could end up causing problems later on down the line, links that are kind of being flagged up then as missing and so on. If we come back into our dashboard, we can jump into the settings for the 404 monitor, and we can see inside there we've got some different options we can set up. So inside here, we can go through and set up in a simple fashion. So for most users, that's going to be perfectly fine. Keep it as simple as possible. Choose the options you need and don't worry about the advanced things. But obviously, if you do want to delve in a little deeper, you have advanced options available. What can we do? Well, we can do some simple things like limit the amount of 404 errors that are in our log at any particular time, because obviously if this is a big site with the potential to have a lot of 404s, the last thing you want is to just be sapping space on your hosting account with tons and tons of errors. Obviously, if you do get flagged up errors, get in there and sort out any problems. You can also exclude paths or files or keywords and things like that. So we can exclude, and we can base this upon exact matches, contains, starts with, and so on. So we can easily come in and just configure this to make sure that things we know we don't need to monitor, we can just blank those out and not get notified if there's a problem, because, well, we don't need to be tracking those kinds of things. Query parameters and so on. So there's a ton of options inside here to allow you to make sure you can set up the 404 monitoring to cater for exactly how you want to work and what you want to monitor. Okay, let's come back into our dashboard now. We'll leave this because I haven't made any changes to it. So if we wanted to, we can just disable that, and you can see once we do that, the options down the left hand side then just disappear. So just choose what you want, enable and disable as needed. So that's the modules that are available. The setup wizard, if you want to run back into that, you can jump back in and start going through that again. Now let's take a little look at some of the options on the left-hand side underneath the rank math section. Let's come into our general settings. Now inside there, you can see we've got different options in the left-hand side, so we can jump through to various different things. We can search for this if we want to. So we can work through this, making sure that everything is configured exactly how we want, and make changes if we've done something we want to change back, or we want to test out. So you've got things like strip category base out. Now by default, whenever you're using WordPress and you create different categories as part of your posts, and the same kind of thing holds true if you're using WooCommerce and things, it will automatically put in like a category at the beginning of it, which gives you a slightly longer URL. Now for some instances, this is a good thing. Some instances on like simple sites, for example, you may want to strip that off there. Obviously, be careful if you do this, because you could end up with duplicate URLs if you're not careful, so use this wisely. But if you want to, you can simply enable it. If you're unsure what it does, why it does it, or why you may want to do it, take a look at the help option that's available where it says why do this. Redirect attachments. If you're using attachments on your site, what do you want to do to handle them? So you can see, I'm not going to go through all these options because there are an absolute ton of them in here, but you can see we've got things like remove stop words from permalinks, things like of, and, those kinds of things. You don't necessarily need to have those in your URL. This will strip it out if you want them to. Obviously, the benefit of having them in there is they become ultimately more readable if it's a kind of short sentence or something. But on the flip side, if you end up with really long file names with lots of stop words in it, it can get a little unwieldy. So again, these options are the kinds of things, it all depends on how you want to control your SEO, how you want to manage things like your URLs, the links, all those kinds of things. So read through these, take your time, take a look, and make sure that you don't click on anything you shouldn't, or you don't know what it does. If you do, make a note of what you've changed, and then you can always come back in and set it back if you find it has an adverse effect on your site. Okay, other than links, let's jump over to images. You can see, do we want to add missing alt attributes? Now this is something that's very useful, especially if you have a big site. You might be automatically importing images into your site. Then if you don't have the time, effort, or the inclination to add in the alt tags, which you should realistically, you can have this do it for you. So we could say we switch that on, and then we can just choose how we want to handle that automatic alt tag naming. So you can see we've got things like, will it automatically add in the file name? We can expand that, and we can just choose from a range of different options. We can also build these up into multiple different sort of, should we say, queries, as it were. And then we can just have that automatically fix it for us. So we'll just set that back to off. The same goes then for the missing title attributes. So you could have the alt attribute and the title attribute automatically being set for you. Now, if you're the kind of person that you name the files that you upload, the images, in a logical fashion, then this could be very, very useful for you, because you could just simply grab the file name and use that as your alt attribute and your title attribute. But take a look at that, see what options are in there to make sure this works the way that you intend it to. So let's jump over and take a look at the Webmaster Tools next. Like I said, I'm not going to go through every option on here. So the Webmaster Tools, if you don't know what the Webmaster Tools are, they're ways of linking it through to various different search consoles and different tools related to different search engines. So you've got the Google Search Console, the Bing Webmaster Tools, the Baidu Webmaster Tools, Alexa Verification ID. So if you want to make sure that your site is optimized for the various different key search engines out there, it's useful to put these pieces of information in. You may not have all of them, you may not even need all of them, but at bare minimum, I would recommend doing the Google Search Console and the Bing Webmaster Tools. Alexa is also probably a very good one to do. And again, if you don't know how to do these kinds of things, each of these options has information on how to go about doing it, how to set it up. So you should have no excuse for not knowing how to do it. All the info is inside Rank Math for you. Next, let's take a look at the Edit htaccess. If we click on there, you can see this will show us the current htaccess file. Now, you can do a lot with a htaccess file, but if you don't know what you're doing, do not touch it. Simple fact. If you don't know what you're doing, you can completely kill your site by making a change inside there. Then you've got to log in via FTP or through the file manager on your hosting account, take out the changes you made, and start again. So be careful, very, very careful. The other thing to consider, again, if you're using some kind of security plugin like iTheme Security, part of that is that will do various different things to your htaccess file. So I would recommend, if you're going to be using something like iTheme Security, don't start messing around with the htaccess through your SEO plugin as well, because you could just end up making a complete mess of things and causing some serious problems that could take a lot of rectifying. So touch that with caution. Finally, we've got others, and this is where we've got different options that don't really kind of fit into any of these other sections. So do we want to allow usage tracking, show your SEO score, any RSS content, and so on and so forth. So take a look. If there's something you think you want to set up in there, by all means do. Now, some area that you probably are going to spend a little time in is the titles and the meta section. Now, inside there, we can control how our titles, how our meta information, and various different aspects of our actual SEO, our on-page SEO, for each different section of our site, our pages, our posts, our categories, products if we're working with WooCommerce, and all those kinds of things. Now, these are global settings, which you can generally override on a page or post basis. So if you wanted to set this up globally, but you wanted to override it on a specific page, you could do that inside the Rank Math section inside there. So set these again with caution. If you don't know what they do, have a look at the little help pop up on the sides. Take a look, do a bit of reading up on it if you're not too sure, and see if it's something you should enable or disable for your specific use case. So anything that's advanced, again, take your time, read up what it does. Don't make changes if you don't know what you're doing. Okay, so we've got these various different aspects then for the global meta. If you want to deal with local SEO, so especially if you're a small business that works with local businesses, local individuals, this is useful to make sure you configure this to give you the best local business ranking information as part of Google. So you can see, you can set up whether you're a person or an organization. If we open up organization, we can set all the details inside there. Person, well, it makes it as an individual. Again, we've only got some basic info inside here. We've got the name or the name of your company, your logo if you want to use one, and the URL for this particular website. Then we've got social meta. So your Facebook page URL, Facebook authorship, admin, Facebook app, and so on. So this is where you link each of the posts through to the various different online social media kind of platforms. And this gives you the ability to make sure that when you post something onto your blog, onto your site, and you want to link that over via, sort of sharing and things like that, you can control what information is passed over and how everything links up to your various different online social media platforms. Take your time, read through, take a look at what the best way of setting everything up is. Your homepage, this is what you're going to have as the homepage, the title, the meta description, your robots, what you share. If you share the homepage over on Facebook, Twitter, and so on, this is where you'd set that up specific to your homepage. And like I say, this is for your homepage. Don't set this up to be kind of global. If you look at authors, if you work with authors and you want to have that as part of your WordPress website, you can again set things up inside here. Now, if you are just one person and you are the only person that actually puts content on the site, or you're a business that doesn't even need to worry about authors, disable the archive section. It has various different implications why it's not good to have them on there if you don't actually use authors. So for this example, we'll just say we'll disable that. And you can see once we do, that disables all the options associated with it. We'll save our changes, and now we've disabled the authors option. So it's just a little tip. If you're dealing with SEO and you want to make sure you've got security in place, this is one of those things that is quite useful just to disable the authors if you don't want to use them. Miscellaneous pages, again, you can come through and you can see various different options like your 404 page. We've got the same kinds of things like the robots meta information and all those kinds of things. So take your time, read through. Then you've got the same kind of thing for your posts, your pages, and your attachments. And obviously, if you were using advanced custom fields, you'll probably see extra options inside here associated with ACF. So if we just take a look at posts, for example, you can see what we're doing is we're setting up a kind of template for how you want your SEO to appear. So it's saying that using this template, all of your posts by default, unless you change it, will have title, a separator, and the site name. So this will take the title of the post, put a little separator in there, which you can set up and configure, and then the site name. So if you want to change that, you can do that. You can see we've got a ton of different options to create that template for your page title. Same goes for the single post description. You can choose the excerpt if you want to. If you use the excerpt, it's up to you. And underneath you can see it gives you a little brief sort of example of what this is going to look like. Schema type. Now, schema is something that is very important now, especially if you're dealing with a bigger website that has articles, it has sort of posts, recipes, videos, and things on there. You can choose what kind of schema type you want to use for your site. This means that you can get things like rich snippets and things when it comes to your search results in Google and so on. So it's very useful to make sure that you configure this. You can do it on a default basis, which is the global setting, which is what you set inside here. But you can, if you also want to, do this on a page or post basis. So not all of your pages or posts may be articles. Some of them could be courses. Some of them could be events, could be products. Set it accordingly if you want to. Or you can set it globally inside here. Same for headline, same for description, article type. Take your time, read the description underneath what it says it does, but you've got so many options inside here to give you the best chances of getting really good ranked websites, web pages, and so on. It's mind-blowing when you compare this to some of the other options, especially, I'll go back and say Yoast, because they want to charge you for almost everything that goes beyond the real basics. So this just opens up so many possibilities of getting great rankings. Skipping over the pages and the attachments because they're going to be basically the same, you can also set up your SEO for your categories and your tags. So as long as you're organizing your information logically, you can see we can come in and set up most of the same data as you can for a post, but obviously this is a bit more global. This is a category that groups your posts together. So a ton of options inside there. And this is probably the one place that I would spend the most time setting things up, because this is the one place that will probably have the biggest impact upon your SEO moving forward. So take your time and read through these post types and the post section for the categories and tags. Set those up. You'll just save yourself a ton of time moving forward. Come on, let's take a look at the sitemap settings. We can configure exactly how that sitemap works if we've enabled sitemaps as an option. So as we said, it is very good to enable sitemaps because they will give the spider a really simple, logical way of finding out what pages you have, what those pages are linked through to, what posts you have, categories, tags, and so on. Just allows it to find its way around the site in a very logical fashion. And again, you can see we can come into the post types. We've got posts, pages, media, taxonomies, categories, and tags. So come in, take a look, set up anything you think you need to, configure it, take your time to read through it. And if you want to take a look at your sitemap URL, you can take a look at this link at the top. Next up, we've got SEO Analysis. Now, obviously, I've got next to nothing on my site. But what this will do is you can run this and it'll give you an analysis of the site itself. So if we click Start That Analysis, it's going to come back and give me some feedback on my site, which, like I say, is about 3 pages. But as you can see, it gives me a good indication of where I am right now. And then I can go through, make some changes to the content, make some changes to my SEO, deal with all the things that they pull up inside here based upon the priority, the basic SEO options and so on. Make sure that I get everything as highly scored as I can. But the one thing I would say is when you're working with SEO, don't become obsessed by just getting the highest possible score, because as long as you get a good score on your site, I don't realistically think it's going to make a massive difference by eking out those final 1 or 2 or 3%. As long as you've got those core things you need in there, the sitemap, good page titles, good meta sort of setup, good sitemap setup, those things are going to give you a good starting point. But ultimately, search engines are getting so much smarter these days that the key, most important thing is write good content and write good content for human beings. You may find a site that'll rank higher than yours, but if someone lands on there and they read and it just comes across as a pile of gobbledygook that's just being geared towards the search engines, they're going to leave that page, that site very quickly, and they will fall down those rankings. So just make sure that you write good content that's clear, legible, and make sure you put your basics of your SEO in place. Okay, so with that little sort of warning out of the way, you can run through this and see where any problems are, deal with those problems, and try to alleviate as many issues as you can. Then run the test again. Keep on doing that until you get those basics in place. Status and tools. Let's take a quick look. So you can see we've got things that roll back to the previous version. So if you update this and you find you have an issue, you can roll back to a previous version. You've also got the ability to beta opt-in. So if you don't mind being a beta tester, which I would not recommend on a live production site, but if you have a test site and you're happy to be on the bleeding edge, by all means, set yourself as a beta tester and test those early versions out. Auto update. Do you want the plugin to automatically update? Up to you. Generally, I would say no, because I don't like to have the control of when I update something taken out of my hands, and then you let it run, an update happens, something causes a problem, and you don't know, especially if you don't have any monitoring software or services monitoring your website for uptime. Your site could be offline for days, weeks, or months before you even know anything about it. So auto update, I would generally say leave that off. Now, once you've configured everything and you've got everything set up, you spend most of your time in your pages and your posts creating content. This is where you'll see the integration with Rank Math. So if we take a look at the pages section, you can see now we have a new section called SEO Details, and this gives us a little bit of information. It'll give us any keyword that's been set, the schema type, the number of outbound links, and all those kinds of useful pieces of information. So that's the basics we can see inside there. However, we can come in and start taking a look at the content on the page itself. Now, when you load in a page, if you're using the Gutenberg editor, you'll see this little symbol in the top hand corner telling you the rank for this particular page. As you can see, 14 out of 100. If you click on it, that'll open up the options then for Rank Math itself. So we can now see we've got the key different tabs that we want on there. We've got the snippet, which is what you see as part of your search engine result. And as you can see, it shows you what it would look like as a result, all laid out in a nice preview. You can edit that snippet if you want to, and you can get rated and ranked on there as you start editing the snippet. So if you remember back when we just took a look at the settings, you could configure how you wanted your meta and your titles to be configured and displayed. That is carried over into here. So you can see the title is by default taking that title, separator, sitemap. If we take a look, there's the title, homepage, there's the separator, there's the website, My WordPress. You can obviously just type over the top of that. So we can just start typing inside there and that'll update. So that's just a default template, which you can, and I recommend you do, overwrite with proper, well-formatted SEO-based titles, descriptions, and anything else you may need to do. So as a bare minimum, I would say put in the relevant data inside there, and also under your social settings for Facebook and Twitter, set your preview image, set anything you want inside there. So we can add our image. We can click on there, add an image, and we'll say we'll just choose this one. We'll select that. That now will show us a preview of what it looked like on Facebook. We could also come in and set our title and our description. Now your description is obviously going to work towards Twitter or Facebook. So write it accordingly. Facebook can obviously have more information, whereas Twitter is limited in characters. But obviously don't write a novel, but write something that would, if someone saw this, they would be intrigued by the image, the title, and the little bit of meta information you've got underneath. Same goes for Twitter. You can see this is going to show us what it would typically look like in Twitter. And again, we've got information. So you can see, use data from the Facebook tab, or we can uncheck that and we can put our own information in there. So you could set this up to have different info for both the meta for the page itself and for Facebook and for Twitter. So take your time, look through it, set things up. And like I say, take that little bit of time to make sure you set up both the general and the social options. We'll close that down. And if we come back over to this right-hand panel, you can see we've also got some other options. Advanced, again, going back to what I said when we set up the global settings, we can override any of those. So by default, everything you see inside here is going to be set up from that Rank Math settings section. Then you can override that on a page or post basis. So nothing is written in stone. Click on the next one. You've got the schema. So again, just going back, whatever we set up as the default schema type, we can change that inside here to make sure that the schema markup is configured correctly for this specific post or page. Then you've got your options, things like your headlines, which again are taken in that default template. So if you don't include anything, it will pick up the default template that you've set up or the default that is set up as part of Rank Math itself. Go through, set those things up. And then finally, we've got the social options, which we just saw from this little preview anyway. So that's all the options we have inside there. Just makes it super easy. Once we've made those changes and we come back out to all our pages, then everything will be updated on this side. Now, if you're an Elementor user, you have an extra option available to you. So we're going to come into a page that's been edited with Elementor. We're going to click on that to open up the Elementor editor. And once we open that up, we'll have a new tab inside there called SEO. Click to open that up and you can see we've got the same information as we have inside Gutenberg, but directly inside Elementor itself. So all the same information is there, the focus keyword, the preview of what it's going to look like, the snippet, which we can edit. Again, you can see all the same options for the general, the social, and so on. The same 4 tabs across the top, so we can come into our advanced, we can come into our schema, or we can come back into our snippet editor. All of those are available to you directly inside Elementor. So that's a super great way of, if you work with this editor and you want to make sure you've got your SEO integrated flawlessly, this is going to do exactly that for you. So once you've made your changes, you just hit the update option, then all your SEO is all in place, including inside Elementor. Now, if you're using advanced custom fields and you're using Rank Math for your SEO, just make sure that you go in and you configure Rank Math to use ACF. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into my plugins section and we're going to come into activate advanced custom fields. Now, this is just the free version. Come back to the Rank Math dashboard. And you can see we've got this ACF section that just says ACF support helps Rank Math SEO read and analyze content written in the advanced custom fields. If your theme uses ACF, you should enable this option. So if you try to enable this without ACF installed, it won't work. If you enable it with it installed, we now have it set up as part of Rank Math. But nothing else has kind of gone on. So this is just working in the background for us, so we don't need to worry about anything. It's all being done behind the scenes for us. So really, there's tons more you can take a look at as part of Rank Math, but I could be here all day going through the whole side of things. Hopefully what you've seen, though, is just in this brief video, there are a multitude of options available that, like I say, absolutely rivals paid-for versions of SEO tools, things like Yoast. Would I recommend Rank Math? Absolutely. I think it's a great plugin. It's something that if you are looking for an SEO option, you don't have any money, but you want to have, well, one of the best out there, install Rank Math. Even if you do have the money, install Rank Math and test it out on a site. See how you like it. See if you think it meets all the requirements that you have. Pretty sure it will do. So give it a try. See what you think of it. So that's Rank Math in a nutshell. Hopefully what this has demonstrated is you have a ton of options available in there, and the fact that it's free, well, it's a bit of a mind boggler, to be honest, because Well, it definitely beats out a lot of the competition that you have to pay for. But what are your thoughts on this? Have you used Rank Math? Would you consider swapping over to it now after seeing this video? Let me have your comments, your feedback, and any experiences you've had of this plugin down in that comment section below. Now, as always, all of the applicable links for everything covered in this video are in that description, so you can check those out. My name's been Paul C. This has been WPTuts, and until next time, take care.